All right, good morning. Let's call the Rankin County Board of Supervisors meeting to order April 16, 2018. First item on the agenda, we'd like to start with an invocation. Mr. Slay, if you don't mind, get us kicked off.
Let's pray. Father, what a privilege it is to stand before you, to thank you for all the many ways that you've blessed us. Thank you, Lord, for protecting us over the weekend. I pray, Father, that you will bless those who serve us in times that are difficult. I pray, Father, that you'll keep them safe and protected. Lord, I pray that wisdom would be imparted to these gentlemen today, that they would make good and wise decisions that are in keeping with the best interests of all citizens of our county. Thank you, Lord, for their willingness to sacrifice, their time, effort, energy, and for their families, Lord. I pray that you would just bless them for their service in Christ's name. Amen.
Great, thank you, Mr. Slay. Item number 3, public comment. The first item we have under public comment is Mr. Sullivan. Ken, you here? Hey, good morning. Come on up to the podium if you don't mind. Saw we had down on some comments on Backyard Burger. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning. Backyard Burgers here this morning.
Okay.
Y'all want to come on up?
I think this is good news. This is going to be a report for you guys on what's
Good.
going on down over at the Multipurpose Pavilion and
All right.
how things have been going with our transition on our concessions and that type of thing. So,
All right. Well, Ken, if you would, introduce the guys you have right here. Or let them introduce themselves, maybe.
Okay.
Either one.
This is Rick and Joe with Backyard Burgers. They're the main men over it, run all the concession stands. Ours at the Multipurpose Pavilion,
Okay.
plus for some cities and the zoo and different places.
Okay. All right. Well, give us a report on how we're looking over at the multipurpose building now. Y'all prepared for that
All right.
this morning?
I think Laura actually has the figures.
I did a quick comparison of the time frame that they've been here. I think they actually started in December through the quarter, through March, the first quarter, as compared to the last 2 years, and it's about 50% higher.
Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah, so far, for the first 4 months, of course, it's a learning experience. They have to get used to the shows and the different shows and what people want and kind of adjust, to what the people are wanting. But for the first 4 months, December through March, our percentage that they paid the county is a little over $5,000
Okay.
for the concession stand.
All right. Great.
50% increase, that's great.
Yes.
How's the experience for you guys?
It's definitely been a little learning curve with the politics with it, but I didn't realize you guys have Rankin County Facebook, so we had our little time with that. But there was a lot of followers for the people that used to be in there, and we're trying to please everybody that's out there, which y'all know in politics hard to please everybody.
Impossible.
Yeah, we're still filling our way through with the menu, and people that they may have had something before that they don't have now, so we're trying to introduce new items, testing different things like meatloaf dinner and things like that, and trying to please as many people we can because it's like everybody there has y'all's cell phone numbers, I guess. So, but we're trying hard.
Well, luckily I hadn't called you, so
Yeah,
all my constituents are happy with you.
Well, anyone that ever upset for anything, we always try to make it right, so one way or another.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. Steve.
It's the hardest part.
Welcome to our world.
Sure.
But anyway, we'd like to welcome to the pavilion. I think things are going great. So far, they paid a little over $5,000 in 4 months, and they're still learning. So the figures are going to get even better as we go on.
All right. Great.
I really have not heard any complaints, honestly. I've only heard some positive things, so just keep moving forward.
All right.
Well, you like to hear
And
that?
actually, while I'm here, I'd like to thank the board and Sheriff Bailey for their support of the pavilion. Things are going up. Everybody wants to come to Brandon now. I don't know how I'm going to pick the ones who get to come next year because there's only 52 weeks in the year. That's how busy we're getting. People are wanting to move shows every day. So I just want to thank y'all for y'all's support because we have become the place to go to now.
All right.
Appreciate
Great,
you
Ken.
for
Thank you.
doing all that you've done to help promote that. It really says a lot for you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate
Appreciate
it. All right. Item B under public comment. Mike Word, ESC Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You got some thing, the part I had on the agenda, I added one more thing to it, if it's all right with y'all. If you're curious about the storm damage, I've got the numbers for that for you right here on the front page. That is not what I came up here for this morning, but if you want me to speak to it,
Hey, without me having to read anything, could you tell us quickly on the storm damage total?
absolutely.
I mean, just the quick briefing on it.
The quick rundown on this thing is it was an EF1 tornado that came through and pretty much hit specifically to Mill Creek. We had in the neighborhood of about 15 homes that were affected or damaged, depending on whose definition you want to go with on that. According to MEMA and FEMA, they were affected, is what they were. I marked one of them as destroyed and have already got a phone call on that. They want to know why I marked it as destroyed, and I told them, I said, well, if this homeowner cannot no longer live in their home, in my mind, it's destroyed. They said, well, it's just affected. Well, y'all go in and change it as you may then. So they did. We've got 3 commercial structures as of right now that are affected. I have got the guys with the EOC, they're going to the Pearl River on Lakeland Drive, and they're going to work their way all the way past Mill Creek, working both sides of the roadway this morning to make sure if we did miss something that they can go ahead and do the damage assessment on it and get it keyed into the computer. So these numbers may change just a little bit.
You're still showing no injuries, right?
No injuries
Okay.
that we have been made aware of.
Okay.
So, really, really unbelievable response on that. I'll tell you really quickly. Channel 12, Liz Carroll called me right as this thing was getting going, and we had initially got some reports that was going on at Mill Creek. She wanted to know about where it was at, so I told her where all the damage was supposed to be that I was getting reports of. She sent a reporter out there, and about lunchtime, I was eating lunch because it was all over, as you well know if you were out there. And Liz calls me back and she says, Mike, did you give me the wrong address or something? Where exactly was the damage at? I sent my reporter out there. She calls me back and said, there's nothing to report. I said, well, where did she go? She said, Mill Creek, right where you said go. I said, well, that's exactly correct. She said, well, there was nothing there. It was already cleaned up. It was a done deal. I said, yes, ma'am, that's correct. She said, well, I don't understand how Rankin County can go do this and everything is cleaned up before my reporter gets there. I simply told her, I said, well, ma'am, here's the deal. I said, I'm sure it's not always going to happen like that. I said, but Rankin County is, our emergency responders are, and I'm not just saying this because this is just an actual fact. Our emergency responders in Rankin County are very well funded, and the Board of Supervisors expects us to go when that bell tolls, and that's exactly what happened. So when you drop 4 engine companies from Reservoir Fire Department, when you drop the road department in to clean road debris off, you drop the EOC in, plus you've got all of these homeowners that are there at one time. You drop that many people into a really tight spot. A lot of things are going to happen. They're going to happen really, really fast. So hats off to all those emergency responders that were out there. The Sheriff's Department shut the roads down, got all the rubberneckers out of the way so the emergency responders could come in and actually do their work. So it was absolutely a concerted effort between everybody involved. So super, super proud of them. The reason I asked to be on the agenda this morning, I want to give you the first quarter run report numbers for, you'll see it's over on page, I believe page 3 of that packet that I just gave you. I was trying to get these numbers together to bring to you guys, and we found some discrepancies. You recognize in the email that I sent out last week about that. Our EMS numbers and our fire numbers were not correlating correctly. I was missing somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,600 medical calls that Pafford was telling me that they ran, and I'm sure they did, but the fire service reports, which is this color-coded chart here, didn't show. So in an effort to find out what the problem is, why are we missing numbers, that is when we discovered the email that I sent to you guys last week that we've had the ones that are highlighted in yellow have not turned in their state reports. 2017, you had 3 departments that didn't turn in any reports whatsoever. In 2018, you've got 7 departments who have virtually done nothing as of yet. This is where our numbers are missing at. We have contacted those fire chiefs. We're sending letters out to their boards today. And you saw the email that I wrote you. They've got options. All we're asking them to do is do the reports and turn it in, which will be able to release their fire insurance rebate money. That's all they have to do is put the reports in. So that's one of the things that they're contractually obligated to do with the contracts that you guys have with the individual fire departments. That is the whole basis behind the contract, is in order for us to disperse these monies from the state, you have to do these run reports.
And that's under statute.
That is absolutely under statute. I've got a copy of Attorney General's opinion over there I just gave to Mr. Slay this morning, which he didn't know was even coming. I'm sure he's already read it, though. So, but that was the deal with the numbers. I hope in the next couple of weeks we're going to have this problem fixed, and I can bring you some really hard numbers. If you'll flip 2 pages over, you'll see the Pafford numbers. They had a total call volume of countywide. This is excluding the city of Pearl and the city of Brandon. They've got their own contracts with Pafford. So this is just the portion that the Board of Supervisors is paying. A total call volume of 2,650 calls. And the big number over there that you've heard people allude to lately is the refusals. At a 38% refusal rate. It's 963 refusals. And that means that either the fire department arrived on the scene and whoever it was that thought they needed an ambulance decided, hey, I do not want to go to the hospital, I do not need an ambulance, and they were disregarded. Or the ambulance actually came out to the scene and obtained a refusal there. But 38%. Mr. Freddie Parker, Operations Manager with Pafford, is here with us. If you've got any specific questions as far as Pafford on their numbers, I'm sure Freddie would be happy to address those for you.
Mike, I thought before we had all the numbers we included Pearl Inflow with.
They're actually on that first spreadsheet right there. It has Pearl and Brandon on there. It shows Brandon running about 2,500 calls last year, and then Pearl running about 2,800. So that's almost, it's pushing 5,000, a little over 5,000 runs between Pearl and Brandon on the fire run. So let's just say 80% of that's medical, right? That would add to that.
You're talking about this
EMS
spreadsheet
number,
right here.
yeah, on
Yes,
that number
this is
there.
fire
Yeah.
calls. This is on the INFRS report numbers. The smaller one on the back is the one that is specific to Pafford, and Pearl and Brandon is redacted from those. The little short one over here, 2 pages past that one. Let me show you what it looks like.
Freddie, do you know what those numbers are roughly? Ballpark?
These numbers right here.
Off the top of my head, no.
Pearl and Brandon?
Yes.
If you would like for me to, from this point forward, to put Pearl and Brandon in there, I'm sure we can make that happen. No problem at all.
Okay. I'd say put them in there just so we see the total pie, I would think.
Not a problem.
All right.
Have you guys got any questions specific to Pafford as far as run numbers or?
Craig, did you want to add anything as far as the fire reports and the importance of that? Are we doing everything we're supposed to do on that as far as notification and?
Yeah, I think making sure the letter that's already gone out to the departments is the way to go.
Okay.
Just reminding them of their contractual obligation.
That you won't be receiving your rebate money
Exactly.
until you comply with the
That's right.
statute says.
That's
Okay.
correct. Just putting them on notice about that should get the job done.
Okay.
I typed an email up last week and I sent it to Mr. Slater to look at it prior to me sending it out to make sure that it was, he was good with it because it did have a little bit of legal jargon, which is not my wheelhouse whatsoever. And he was good with it, so we did push that out, and we actually communicated via telephone with each and every one of these people that are involved in this as far as getting these reports. And we got letters that are going to back that up going out today. So.
All right. Anything, Jay? Steve?
No, I'm good.
Jerry? Bob?
Good.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Word.
you.
Thank you,
all.
Freddie. All right, an additional item to add for C under public comment. Steve, do you have something?
Yes. We have people on our under this section, public comment, a good bit, and but very rarely do we get something for our first responders, sheriff's department, fire department, ambulance, or whatever, saying, "Hey, what a great job y'all are doing." I got a letter that went to the coroner, and that would be the last one I think that I would have thought we would have gotten, but it was so significant. I thought it should be read. I do have to redact the names. I don't want to do that, but I'm not going to tell you the name or address that it came from. I just wanted to tell you how thankful we were for you when we lost our child. You were so kind and treated our baby like he was your baby. I've met a lot of parents who've lost children who weren't so blessed. A friend of mine just lost her husband, told me how thankful she was that you were the person who came out. She's talking about our coroner, David Ruth. And I shared with her our experience with you. I know your job is hard, but we appreciate you. I know that you deal with a lot of sad things. I wanted to share with you some happy news. The morning we lost our child, another member of our family was saved. He reached out to God, and God reached back. He said he couldn't even describe what he had experienced. That afternoon, after telling our family, a relative called and said her daughter woke up at the same time that we found our child dead. Not knowing that what had happened, she dropped to her knees and prayed. She said, I had just reconnected with this family member 1 week earlier at my dad's funeral. Lastly, we prayed for God to allow us to have more children, and that is happening too. She wrote that to our coroner after losing their child, and I thought that the public ought to know that what quality, I mean, that means you have some quality people working when we get that type of response. Yes, sir.
Y'all like to add something to that, just add, since we're talking about David, you know, over at the jail, we have 500 inmates, we have about 20 Blue Chip trustees who are almost like employees and things like that. Barry, if you don't mind, stand up. Barry and I talked to them, and one issue you have with inmates when you talk to them is the guilt that they have when they're incarcerated and a loved one dies. So we had an individual over there whose father was dying, terminally ill. So how long was it? For 3 months.
Several months.
We let him go on a pass from about 8 in the morning to about 8 at night. He was spending 12 hours a day with his dying father caring for him. During the day, come back to the jail, and he finally passed away. And he's able to have his father saved, baptized, everything. And when David Ruth came out there, the family has no money at all. So David worked with us, the funeral home, everybody, and we had to pay a little bit of money. We took up a collection at the sheriff's office to pay the funeral expenses and everything. But just to show you the extra effort that David takes, even with an inmate. You know, somebody, doesn't matter to anybody else in the world, it meant something to him. David really helped us out on that, so he's doing an outstanding job for us.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barry. Thanks, Steve, for reading that. One other item also on public comment from the list Miss Janice gave me. Mr. Hayes, I've got you on the list right here.
Yes, I got it.
We're going to give you 50. We're going to give you 50 words.
I'll make it short. I live at 402 Mill Run Road. My name is Aubrey Hayes, and I'm here, Daniel, to thank you and your merry band of responders that came out Saturday morning and cleaned up before Channel 12 was able to find. They were still looking this morning.
Good. I hope they look for a while then.
We really appreciate what you've done. We're going to have a little debris along the curbs, but that is not near what y'all secured the property so quick. The amount of damage has been minimized.
Great. Well,
we appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Come back up anytime to speak.
Anytime
Anytime else you want to come back and say anything. All right. Item 4, old business.
So, man.
We had a motion to approve by Mr. Morrow.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaines. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed with the like sign. So old business is approved. Consent agenda under item 5.
So moved.
So motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Mr. Morrison. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed with the like sign. So item 5 passes. Item 6, Ms. Fortenberry, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
I have a request to void the 2016 and 2017 tax sales and refund the tax sale purchaser for parcel H11P6470. That's PIN number 26496. This parcel was in bankruptcy and should not have been included in these tax sales.
All right, motion approved.
Second.
So motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Gaines. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed with the like signs. Item 6 passes. Thank you, Ms.
And in the
Fortenberry.
absence of Mr. Sullivan, I'll go ahead and read his for him.
Thank you very much.
Motion approved.
All right, so motion to approve by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed with the like
Thank you, Mr.
sign.
Sullivan.
All right, item 8, Mr. Harrison. And again, I know Word mentioned it a second ago. We've heard several people say it, but outstanding job by your road crews this weekend. So thank you for that. So item A.
I like that vest.
He looks
Thank
good today, you know? A little bit more pop in his step when he's got that vest on. So.
Request for approval of utility permit for AT&T to construct a copper utility along and across J.C. Prestige to be installed between Leesburg Road and Fairlane Drive.
Okay.
I make a motion.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign. So item A passes. Item B, Mr. Harrison.
Request for approval of utility permit from Atmos Energy to construct a 2-inch HDPE gas main with service utility along and across Spillway Road, Reservoir Park Road to be installed between April 2018 and May 2018.
Mr. Harrison, it just makes my stomach turn when I hear Atmos Energy. So surely we're going to stay on top of this one.
That's right.
Right.
That's going to be coming from that Shaggy's down all through there's where that's coming across.
Right.
On that. So, all right. Thank y'all.
All right, so let me make a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, so motion approved by Mr. Morrison, second by myself. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign. So item B passes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Harrison.
y'all.
This is sweater vest day, I think.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Buster. How are you?
Morning, doing fine.
Item number 9.
Thank you. I have 2 items. 2 items on the agenda. They're both on Clover Valley. And they probably need to be handled separately, but if you want to handle them in one motion. But we're recommending approval of the final plat, but with that recommendation, there is a contingency. 2 things. One, we do not have the letter of credit in hand. It has been discussed with the developer, et cetera, but we do not have that letter of credit in hand. And also, the covenants that the attorneys have been talking about, Mr. Slay has not had an opportunity to review those covenants yet with the developer. So I'm recommending Phase 3 and Phase 4, if you'd like to do them in one motion, to be a contingent approval of the final plat.
All right, so motion by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Morrow. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Slade, good morning. Item 10.
I make a motion we take A, B, and C together.
Okay. So motions to take items A, B, and C together to set those public hearings by Mr. Morrow.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign. Motion passes. So we're at item D, Mr. Slade, for public hearings.
Yes, sir. This will be a public hearing on the William Pittman conditional use permit at 1044A 7th Day Road, District 1. Mr. Pittman is seeking a conditional use permit to operate a short-term boarding and daycare for small dogs. The building can board a maximum of 25 dogs. There are 7 outside fenced areas, 6-foot fences, and the dogs will go out 3 to 4 times a day for approximately 15 minutes. So 10-acre parcel is zoned A2. Mr. Pittman's home is also on the 10-acre parcel. This time we'll open that public hearing, and I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to the William Pittman conditional use permit. Anyone? Mr. President, I don't see anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter. We'll close that public hearing. At this time, it'll be appropriate to take action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. So motion approved by Mr. Morrow, second by Mr. Gaines. Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Gaines. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign.
I would like to add, Mr. Pittman's son, who is somewhere between Daniel and my age, was ranked in the top 5 in the world in bareback riding a few years ago, a few times, not once, but from right where they live now.
How about
Right.
that?
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know
Right,
that.
yep.
All right.
I'm glad I don't have to ride.
Noted.
Me too, not again.
I was scared you were going to say Daniel's going to ride. But... Whew. All right. Item E, Mr. Slay.
Yes, sir. This will be a public hearing on the Freddie Rowell rezoning request at Antioch Shiloh Road. This is District 3. Mr. Rowell is seeking to rezone a 112-acre parcel that is off of Antioch Shiloh Road from its current zoning of A2 to RE1. He is requesting the change of zoning to allow for a possible large tract residential development. A2 does not allow for development of major or minor subdivisions. This time, we will open the public hearing. I'll ask for any who wish to speak on the matter of the Freddie Rowell rezoning request to step forward. We will need a name and an address, and if possible, we would like to keep the comments in the public hearing to no more than 3 minutes. Anyone here to speak in opposition on the Freddie Rowell rezoning request? You'll come forward, please. State your name and address. Come all the way here. Name and address.
Walk down Shallow Road and take Oak White. Or you go down the other, it ties into 43 on further down.
I don't have all the papers you all do. My name is Pat Hart. I live at 804 Antioch Shallow Road. I've been out there 30 years. Mr. Gaines, you've been to see me several times. I really don't like to be in opposition to Freddie Rowell. I love him with all my heart. We've been going to church together a long time. But he's interfering with my lifestyle. And my husband is deceased, and so I'm speaking for my family. We love our home, we love Shiloh, we love the way it is out there. We have neighbors, we depend on each other. We raise cattle, we raise chickens, and I won't say raise hell, but we have a good time. Most of us go to Shiloh United Methodist Church. We love our God and we love our country. We don't want a subdivision out there. I think it will ruin the atmosphere. I think it'll bring too many people in. I think we're okay the way we are. And I just wanted to come tell y'all that. Leave us alone. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments.
If I can, I appreciate those comments. Let me kind of maybe set this standard for you gentlemen in the back who are getting ready to talk. We may be able to bring this to heads a little bit closer. The conversations I've had from folks, some of y'all may have called me and we've talked, is that they're concerned with the density issue out there, which is rightly so. And as a result of the zoning of the property, we don't allow subdivisions and ag use, so when somebody wants to come in and try to do something and break it up into tracts, it requires us to try to accommodate our zoning ordinance by rezoning it to residential zoning. Mr. Rowell came and is wanting to hopefully sell the whole tract at one shot, but if he can't do it, he would like permission to break it up in larger tracts. I think the topography out there won't allow for anything too small. I think maybe 25 was the smallest thing I saw on maybe a scenario he was looking at to do. Taking that into consideration, and I understand y'all's concern. Y'all don't have a problem with Freddie taking it and breaking it up in large parcels, but I believe y'all's concern is if he sells it to John Smith out there, a 30-acre parcel, and we rezone that to RE1, then that person's free to do whatever they want to without any permission from, they still have to come before us to get approval for the subdivision, but they can put a smaller subdivision in there. Is that pretty much the major concern? He's proposing selling 20 and 40-acre tracts. And to be honest with you, we still, like she said, we still live in the good old U.S. of A. where we love God and country. And I'm pretty much going to let them sell us 20 and 40-acre tracts because, it's their right to sell. But come on up if I'm differing from that opinion or that comment.
I'm Gabe Walters. I live almost straight across the road. Yeah, that's my concern, is breaking it down. Once it's zoned RE1.
That's right.
Can't it be broke down now or later, 6 years or 60 years, into smaller tracts than the 15 or the 20 acres that he's got it planned out now?
Let me ask, just because if we were to deed restrict that, if it's a 20-acre parcel, and we deed-restrict that no further division.
Hang on a second before you make this proposal.
I'm asking if that's
well, let's just get to the discussion first.
The other thing is, why does it have to be RE1? Why can't he leave the tracks?
I think I'm fixing to come up with a solution that will solve y'all's concerns, allows Mr. Rowell to kind of continue to move on. You're right. There is a gap in our zoning that needs to be addressed for large acreage deals like this when this comes up. We don't have that in our zoning classification yet. We've had numerous discussions about trying to come up with something, and that is something we're going to try to solve since this has been brought to the head. What I'm going to propose, and I think Mr. Rowell is on board because, again, it gets back to the topography out there, to just common sense standpoint, as long as he sells property that has at least 150 feet of frontage on Antioch Shiloh Road, he's good to go without any type of zoning change whatsoever. And we're just going to, that's a little deviation from what we need to do to legally to make this thing play. But to give y'all some satisfaction and some, to put y'all's fears to rest, that if in the event anybody down the road that buys that property wants to put a subdivision, they still got to come back before us to do a rezoning request, at which time you'll get notified again like you were this time, and you could come up and speak in opposition to that particular request. And ideally, we should have done this probably on the front end, not make Freddie jump through these hoops, not make you guys, come up here and do it. But we're trying to do what the zoning ordinance requires, and but we see a gap here that needs to be addressed. So I think the way it lays out, I think, Freddie, if I'm not mistaken, you might be willing to, at least say a minimum of 15 acres on what that has road frontage, something like that, maybe, or something.
Yeah, it couldn't be broke up any smaller, the topography of that land. And I'll be honest, the one tract that I've already sold out there, I'm deed restricted it anyway that it can't be subdivided.
What about the tracks in the back, though? Ain't there some issue with the road?
He's got to come to 100 to 150 feet of road frontage. How he does it. Now, if he decides to go back that route, that changes the scenario on his access and what he has to make public access, whatever the case may be. But right now, if he has 150 feet of frontage on that road, on that Shiloh Road, he's good to sell it. No deed restrictions, no nothing the county is going to put on him. He's just ready to rock and roll, and it'll stay ag. It'll stay ag.
What about the back tracks that don't have frontage?
But my whole point is, he's not going to sell it without it frontage. He's got to sell the tract with 150 feet of frontage, and there's no deed restrictions.
Okay.
I believe what you're saying, what he's asking, what about if it goes further? It's 150 feet in front, but it goes 20 acres deep. What's he going to do back
20
there?
acres deep. I mean,
but he still can't sell that.
There's two tracks in the back that don't have any frontage.
We haven't seen any proposal. He has not presented any proposal to us about what he's proposing to do. Right now, he's trying to sell it as one track. He wants the option to sell it up in multiple tracks. Any road that provides off the back side of it has to be built to county specifications.
Okay, so why do we have to change it to RE1?
We're not.
Why can't we
I'm
leave
not
it
just
to
saying we're not
A2?
going to. I'm just saying we're not. I'm saying we're allowing him. We're going to shut the public hearing down because we're not going to change the zoning. We're just going to allow him to move forward. 150 feet of frontage on Antioch Shiloh Road. He's good to go. He wants to put whatever ag use out there allows him, that he's welcome to go. And I understand y'all's concern, and we're going to address this concern down the road because there's other people out there that got 200 and 300 acre tracts that want to break them up in 10, 20, 30 acre tracts. And we don't really address that in our zoning ordinance out in that part of the county, or south part, or the northeast part. So, but we're not going to change the zoning. He has to, sell 150 feet of frontage, of road frontage on Antioch Shiloh, regardless how deep it is. That's
100 feet. It could be 100 acres deep.
That's up to him. But we're not going to put any deed restrictions on him because I don't think there's a need to.
Okay.
So he's already going to be zoned ag.
So it's going to stay A2.
It's going to stay A2.
What he's saying, he could have sold that. If I'm not mistaken, you could sell that 150 regardless.
That's right.
As long as you got 150 feet of frontage, he could do that. Have done that last week, a month ago, a year ago.
Yeah,
but what do you think is?
But we're trying to work through our zoning ordinance and get it to match up so we have an understanding of what's going on out in the community. Last thing we want to do is somebody to go out on the back side and sell 20 acres to the back side, us not know about it, and now we got a road issue. Right. Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to keep it? Right. Those kind of things. And that's what we're trying to get away with, what we're trying to accomplish with the zoning issue. But I appreciate y'all's concern of what's going to happen down the road and what's going to happen to your community down there. But that's how we can solve this problem with that. But we're not going to change it. It's going to stay exactly like it is.
Okay. And he's got to sell tracts that have road frontage.
You got to say 150 acre tracts.
No,
150
feet.
150 feet wide, at least minimum 150 foot of the road.
Okay.
And that way, and if somebody bought that and wanted to come, it'd be then their place.
That's
They'd
right.
come in here and say, hey, I've just bought 100 acres back here with 150 foot of frontage. I want to do this and this. Then have to start all over again.
Right.
And it's like you'd be aware and we'd be aware, and we could either shut it down, compromise, or they'd have to build a road or something. I mean, you'd all be aware. So
Sure, okay.
Right.
Does that work? Does that work for the rest of you gentlemen back there?
Anybody happy with that?
Nope.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
come on up.
Come on up.
My name is Donald Bray Jr. I've lived at the property on 848 Antioch Shiloh Road since I was 10 years old. I'm 57 now, so you calculate the number of years. It's always been agriculture, as previously been stated. We have a good community as it is. I expect a cow to get out every now and then, smell chicken manure, that type thing. But we're a tight-knit neighborhood. I'm concerned because I see a trend. I noticed on Shiloh Road last year, not Antioch Shiloh, but Shiloh right before you turn onto Antioch Shiloh. A section of land had been divided up and it had a minimum frontage and went to the back, and voila, subdivision, another subdivision right out there where we live. And I see a trend of this board, this county allowing that to happen, and this was agriculture zoned land, and I am 200% against it. I appreciate what you men do for us as a community, but keep in mind that we are politically active. We do vote, and we watch what you do. And you are our servants, not the other way around. And I'm wondering why this trend, it would be like you deciding that it's okay to put a chicken house in Brandon city limits almost. That's the way it looks to us. I've got other questions, but why is this trend? Is this a trend, or am I mistaken?
I'm confused on something.
Yes, sir.
Two things. One, if we weren't even having this meeting today at all, he could still sell it just like it's set up as we just described. I mean, it's nothing prohibiting that at all. I mean, he could sell it, could have done that 2 years ago because it's owned agriculture, and he could have sold it with 150 foot of frontage. I mean, so we're not doing anything that couldn't have already been done. And the other thing, I'm curious on the subdivision you're talking about off Shiloh. Are you familiar with it? I mean,
I think he's just talking about the growth of the county in general with all
There
the
is
subdivisions
no,
going
he
through.
said he's talking
I
about.
know.
That has not come before us. And I know where you're talking, but they hadn't brought it to us.
When was this?
How long ago? I've seen those signs out there for 6 months probably.
I think I saw it last year. I
Well, I mean,
came Shiloh Road
just
home.
selling it?
Well, see, herein lies the problem we have. This is the problem we get. Somebody gets a 40 or a 60 out there.
Yeah.
Pretty piece of property, 40 or 60 is probably worth $5,000-$7,000 an acre is one tract, But I could turn around and sell 5 acres, $15,000 an acre a tract, on the back side, Somebody wants to get out of town, wants to get out in the country, Somebody's willing to sell them 5 acres at $15,000. Who wouldn't kind of be a little tempted to go ahead, sure, I'd make that $75,000 and still have the rest of my tract. So what they do is, there's an old gravel road out there, an old logging road probably at some point in time. They give it an easement out to it, and before we know it, 2 or 3 tracts have already sold before we're made aware. Only way we're made aware of it is through building permits, and people come in to get building permits. And then we go in there and try to help solve the problem, and we put some deed restrictions on it and say this is not going to be a bus turnaround. We're not going to maintain the road, stuff like that. So everybody else going down the road knows that's not a county issue. But we can't stop market activity. I mean, if somebody wants to make money off their property by selling it, and if that means they can subdivide it by road frontage or whatever, or if they want to come in and put a public road in, to some degree, I mean, we still live in the United States where they get an opportunity to make a living and sell their property. I mean, you still have to have property rights. What you're referring to some degree is restricting property rights. When you do that, you're taking money away, you're taking money out of people's hands. These farms that had chicken houses on it, back in the day when they were probably built 20 or 30 years ago, that land was probably worth about $750 an acre. That land is probably worth about $4,500 an acre today, and you probably wouldn't put chicken houses back on it. Now, some people might have, tornado destroyed it, but nobody's going to go out there and spend $4,500 an acre to put a chicken house on, because they can't make money that way, or not much anyway if they do. Yeah, I appreciate the rural environment that y'all want to do, but some of this stuff is just out of our hands. I mean, it's a market-driven society we live in. People have the right to sell land, make money, and we try to control that growth. We try to make sure the roads are built to our specifications, so we have minimal tax dollars involved in keeping them up. We try to make sure that they build a right home and put it to code, so when something does happen to it, it minimizes the fire damage or safety. I mean, we just don't. I mean, folks will go out there and they will violate the ordinance and go ahead and put gravel road in and start selling stuff off, and we try to catch it as soon as we can, but it's typically 2 or 3 lots have already been sold in it before we catch wind of it, because only from building permit standpoint. And that's kind of the trap that we're in to some degree. But, I understand your desire to maintain your quality of life out there, but unfortunately, folks want to come to Rankin County, and the market value keeps moving. I mean, that dollar, I mean, that 20 and 10 and 20 and 30 acre tract's a very popular size tract. It's anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 an acre. That's pretty darn strong. You go right across into Smith County, Scott County, Simpson County, and it's half that much, and even maybe more than that for that size tract. So it's a premium. People want to live in Rankin County, and that's kind of the problem you're describing, I think.
I live in a very much rural area, just like yourselves, and we've experienced the same thing, and we don't have control of it. I mean, it's effects. I can carry you down roads where we used to farm. There used to be soybean fields, corn fields, whatever, and now they've been sold, just like you said, and they were agriculture, and they sold large tracts. Some have been sold large tracts and then turned into developments where they sold 3 and 5 acre lots and built, 3,000 square foot homes. But, I hate to see some of it change the landscape, but there's really not anything you can really do if this person decides to sell that. It's hard for us to control it. And I experienced some of the same things I've been here all my life and live in the area where I live all my life. So I've seen it all change, and I sympathize with you, but I do understand Mr. Morrow's points. I mean, and like I said, there's nothing to prevent anyone from selling land with 150 foot of frontage at any time, and they wouldn't have to come to us for approval or anything. So, I mean, our hands are really, if you wanted to sell yours, that's just the way it would be. We can't control that. But I do sympathize with what you're saying, but I don't know what we could do.
Well, I don't want to be misunderstood. I understand private property rights and what comes with that, and I support that. This is the United States. But it falls back on you guys to be protectors of people that live in agricultural regions by zoning. If you've got gaps in your zoning ordinances, you need to tighten that up. That's what it sounds like to me, and you weren't even aware that I passed by this sign, and it's got the whole tract right there, and it's probably 100 feet, 150 feet frontage, goes to the back like this, looks like a quarter of a pie, for sale. And I know what's coming, and I don't blame people for wanting to move to that area. It's a wonderful area. Pretty soon, it's not going to be a wonderful area anymore. It's going to be like living in a gated community over here in Brandon, and that is not what we want. Like I say, I'm powerless to change it, except through you guys. We want you to be the gatekeepers for us. And there's a lot of land out there. I understand that the older generation, when they die off, their children have the land, and they don't want to live in the country, and they see the money that they can make. I don't I don't begrudge people for making money either. It's a capitalist society. But what that does, they make money and it degrades our quality of life and the value of our property as it stands right now.
I want to say, because about half of y'all live or vote in my district, I'm as sensitive on this as, I'm more sensitive probably than I should be. We have a problem, but other counties say it's a great problem, and that is, especially where you're at, all the way to Pisgah, that's new ground for these developers. They see it. A lot of them are not even from our county. And I have, I mean, it's a battle at that table every week, they can tell you, with me and developers, that you're not coming into our county, Miami County, and change the standard of living or the way we live. And I'm gonna say just last year we went through trying to tighten up these gaps with the new zone and our new sub-regs that make it, I mean, much more difficult for these developers to do what they used to do. We're way more coordinated. This, because it's going from agriculture, if it sold in 3 tracts of 40 acres apiece, and I don't even know the total acres, but 30, you know, that could still be agriculture, but not, the regs doesn't address that. And where I live is probably some of the last row cropping. Where y'all are is cattle, poultry. But once we take agriculture land out of agriculture, it's never coming back. Not 1 inch of it will ever be back into agriculture. And it's just the opposite when you looking at residential and commercial. They just seem to swell. And I appreciate everybody here for coming out. And the reason you have the neighborhood you have is because people care. They care enough to come up here and say, please don't hurt us. That Mr. Riles farms and has a farm up on the other side of Pelahatchie, and I hope and I feel that he's going to do the same thing that you want done. You know, to me, the best resolution of all would be for him to get with y'all and figure out who wants to farm it and buy it and keep it in farming. I bought 3 places around me and put it in pastures because the last one, I didn't need it at all. But I didn't want something like what y'all are talking about coming in. But I think Bob is trying to do, I believe he's found a way, because I asked about this same way and it wasn't. He's going to try to find a way we can make sure it stays zoned agriculture. And that's the best thing, to where somebody can't come there in 10 years from now when this board's different, sheriff's different, or whoever else is different, and starts complaining because they smell chickens. And they do, I mean, that could get some traction in a different day with different people here. But I'm very concerned and very intense with the way I live and the way y'all live, and I want it to stay the same too. It's some people like living in a city environment, some people don't. And obviously, the majority of people in here don't. And I don't want to change the way you live.
I appreciate that, and I don't have any personal vendetta against Mr. Rowell, and no hard feelings for what he's trying to do. This is a bigger issue, like I say, it's a trend.
Right. It is. It's, every week right there.
If I lived close to Brandon and I wanted to get in the country, the word is, the best place to live is where I live.
Yep.
The reason is because the neighbors that I have and the quality of life that we have. So if it continues the direction I see it going, that's going to change for us. And
if we're not careful, 10, 20 years down the road, they're not even going to live there.
Exactly.
We're with you. I mean, we sympathize completely. I mean, I live on a family place. I'm right there with Mr. Gaines on just like I'm describing. Like I say, I've been there all my life. I know exactly what you're dealing with. And that's where we're trying to do what we do. Mr. Morrow, I think he has I mean, he's trying to massage this the best way he can, but like I said, we can't stop him from selling, or anybody else in agriculture selling, split it up and selling it, as long as he's got that 150 feet, even though it's agriculture. But then if it goes to the next step, that's where we can be more involved, and that's all we can do as far as it being rezoned for residential.
Yes, sir. If I understand correctly, but you deal with that on a case-by-case basis. You have not established a zoning ordinance in relation to that activity, right?
What we've got is you've got the couple of classifications of residential. What I'm trying to do is address what Freddie's trying to do here is, because somewhere, I'll use a tract down on Woodrow Martin, it's 400 acres. The gentleman would love to try to do something. They can't afford to put roads in because of the density issue and the cost relationship. And I'm trying to figure out a way, what if we do a minimum of 10 acres or a minimum of 15 acres, keep it the rural residential tract, and still accommodate that mini, what they call a mini farm, to go and do. Now, if we can all have a meeting of the minds, I don't know, because that involves the road issue too, and what kind of road would we require, same kind with the asphalt, stuff like that. But yet it is, because our market is changing, in Steve's area, and Jared's area, and my area, we have a lot of rural tracts, and we have people that want to do what we're wanting to do, and that's split it up, put a road in it, and set it off in acreage tracts. And right now, there's not really correct me if I'm wrong, there's not really a zoning classification or a road ordinance that we have that kind of works to that.
That's correct.
But we're working towards that. This has brought it to the head for us, I think, as a board. We realize we've got to address this issue now and make it more palatable, that you have a say, as well as if you've got 100 acres and, you want to do something with it, somebody else has got 100 acres, they want to do something with it, that they can still do it, but still maintain the life out there, the quality of life you've got. So
I've exceeded my 3 minutes, but I ask permission for just a couple more.
Sure.
How are you a real estate agent, sir?
I am.
Okay. I understand your right to make a living as well, and I'm not here to bash anybody. I'm here to defend. Okay, and I represent a lot of families that I talk to. I only found out about this last night. Late. They could not make it on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock, and I have the fortune to be able to do that. So the people that you see here in opposition is a small number. I guarantee you that every other neighbor that could be here and would be here would express the same opposition. My other question is, how are we notified about activities like this that go on? Do we have to watch the land rolls and the
Individual property owners who are within 160 feet of the acreage that's being considered for rezoning are given actual notice. A certified letter is mailed directly to them to let them know about the hearing. That is, that they're contiguous to that piece of property. Signage goes up at the site of the proposed rezoning, and a newspaper ad is run. So there are multiple methods by which the public is notified about the proposed rezoning.
I really don't know what else we can do. I guess we put it on Facebook, huh?
I've never been on Facebook.
No,
and don't
I'm
plan
just
to
thinking,
be.
that's what they always come back to me and say, hey, it's on Facebook. Yeah, I understand, but we try to notify as much as can, and I know sometimes if you send out a notice, you might have, they may have a post office box rather than a physical address, and it may go to one, so some people want one or the other, and some people don't get it, and I know that sometimes doesn't always work, but I don't know really what else we can do. We're always open for suggestions of how we can get notification out, but it sometimes is hard to get everybody.
I can see that.
Any other questions or so? We've got a few others that may want to speak also. If you're good.
No, I thank you for your time, and I appreciate.
And we do try to stay on top of these problems where these rogue developments get put in. We're willing to work with anybody, but if you do see something out there that somebody was like they're doing some activity that doesn't sound right, man, feel free to call up the board office and say, hey, Meaning I need to go check on this.
In fact, I would say let's go check on the one that you
We've
described.
already, I think
Yeah.
we've already, it's been addressed.
Okay.
We've had about that for about
I've
2 or 3
seen one
lots.
house already, it appears being built on
Yeah,
that
we've already,
track.
I think, put a set of deed restrictions on it.
So if you weren't aware of it, that's concerning to me, and it's also concerning to me that there's zoning issues that have not been addressed that you are telling me and I'm seeing is a big issue right here in front of us right
We're gonna see
now.
what we can do on some of that. The biggest problem with some of those is, and like Ms. Morrow said, is a road. The roads are required to build in there, and that sometimes stops some of it because it's not fair for us to allow them to build a less than county standard road and then come back later one day and it will happen and say we want the county now to take it over, and then it's your tax dollars and mine that are bringing that road then up to a county standard. So that's where we try to hold our developer, anyone selling in a situation, hold their feet to the fire to build that road, because it's your tax dollars one day that's going to have to do it. So,
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Come on forward. Hey, good morning. Just introduce
Morning.
yourself, if you would, please.
I'm Eddie Bates, 2844 Shiloh Road. I have land in Mr. Gaines' district, and I have land across, diagonally connected by the road to that property. I have no problem really with people being able to buy the 20 acre, 15, as long as our rights as people, I'm not a chicken farmer. I work for Nucor Steel, 30 years, but I haul chicken up and down the road to my place. And I'm also a cattle farmer, and I put chicken out on my land. But, I'm satisfied as long as you're going to leave it as ag land. And all I'm asking is that stay honest with us. Because I promise you, we won't hold the people that we'll bring next time.
I think that's what we're trying to do here.
And I appreciate what you said, because it seems like we're going to work out something that we can live with.
If anybody's under the impression that we're going to do Ag 2 today and tomorrow we're going to do RE1, you're sadly mistaken. I live and work in this county. My word is my bond as a real estate agent. And I don't appreciate that thought process that something else is going on that that's going to happen later. What we say in this boardroom is recorded, and it is going to happen the way we say it's going to happen.
Okay.
So, but I appreciate your thoughts.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Great. Anything else, Mr. Slay?
Ray, do you have anything to add to the equation here?
I'll just say that I promise you.
Come on up. Come on, Fred.
You got to come front and center.
I appreciate everybody's comments today, and I can promise you that this community is important to me and this county is important to me. Honestly, I got about 90 acres out there I want to sell. It's for sale today in one tract. The reason we're at this point, me and Mr. Slay and Mr. Parker, and we all met and discussed because I had sold one piece of this property, and I think the county assumed that we're dividing it up, and my intention has never been dividing it up in small tracts because it won't divide in small tracts. It's steep hills and hollows. I promise you I will deed restrict this property. I've deed restricted the one parcel I've sold out there. It cannot be subdivided, cannot be any manufactured homes put on it, and it must be kept up and kept clean. No junk stored. There's 5 or 6 items on there. So I can promise you that anything that I do is going to be for the best of Shiloh area, Rankin County area. I think most of you know my place. Mr. Gaines, I know you do well. I've sold several tracts property next to me, small as 2 and 3 acres. In the past, over the past 10 years, and I've got some really nice neighbors. I spread over 1,000 tons of chicken litter on it every year. I've educated them on what it smells like, and they're good with it. So again, I respect everybody that's came today and their points. I will tell you, as a farmer in a county like Rankin County, we must educate society on how we do and what we do, because if you don't, that's where you run into issues. We can't stop the growth. There's no way to stop the growth. It's coming to us. Land will be further subdivided. It is. And I appreciate the board, and I know this is a challenge in trying to figure out how to do it, how to make everybody happy. But as landowners, and I own a bunch of real estate in Rankin County, as landowners, we must do a good job of educating people as they come in, especially in the farming communities, that this is what we do. I had a neighbor call me yesterday and said, my daughter's getting married Saturday. We're going to have a party at the house. Please don't spread no chicken litter this week. I said, yes, sir, I won't. But we must do a good job of educating the people that do move in. But again, I don't even want to subdivide this property. I'd like to sell it. It's been for sale. And it hadn't been hidden it's for sale. It's had a sign up on it for the last 2 years. But as you, Mr. Morrow said, it's difficult selling big tracts of property. And, you know, we've got a lot of people that want 10, 20, 30, 40 acres of land in Rankin County. And, you know, that's my full intentions, and my full intentions are to make sure that it's deed restricted properly, and people can't just do anything on this property.
All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Do you own that property?
I have control over that property. My ex-wife owns that property.
So you don't even own the property?
I have control over the property.
And you're in the banking business, is that correct?
Wait a minute, you want to come speak?
All right, hey, all right, hold on.
Eddie,
hold
if you
on,
want
hold
to
on.
say something, come up to the
Come
microphone.
up, Ed, if you want to speak.
No, I've said all I want to say.
Okay. All right, Mr. Slay.
Yeah, if there's no further commentary, we'll close that public hearing. Let me see if I can summarize to some degree what I think we're trying to accomplish here. The zoning ordinance is limited in terms of how we can control or regulate the subdividing activity. So in order to introduce some safeguards, we use our subdivision regulations to, in essence, define the activity that has been proposed, which is to divide the property. Unfortunately, our subregs require us to use a one-size-fits-all approach to that. And we simply say, under our new regs, the first act of subdividing triggers our subdivision regulations. But the truth of the matter is that subdivisions conjure up different images for different folks. What they are envisioning when you say the word subdivision is different. And there's probably 100 people in here, 50 people in here, will have that many different ideas about what a subdivision is.
Well, good thing we know this is going to be agriculture. So
That's correct.
We can move on to something else now.
And so the whole point of my little summation is this: we can address the concerns without messing with the zoning through the subregs. And so that's what we're intending to do. There's no reason for us to rezone this property at this time. We are simply choosing to not classify Mr. Rowell's activity as creating a subdivision.
Can
Okay.
you and Renee get together and get verbiage that addresses that to where we're not having to reinvent this wheel? Because just a couple of weeks ago, I'd say when Freddie came in, we're the ones that told him that you got to have it rezoned, or
That's
Renee's
correct.
office, or so put it
Correct.
in writing or whatever.
So here's how it works. We said, hey, Freddie, you're subdividing your property. That triggers the subdivision regulations. We're going to classify it at this time as a subdivision, and therefore, we're telling you that you cannot create a subdivision in A2 zone. We don't allow subdivisions in A2. We don't allow subdivisions in A1. We don't allow subdivisions in RE1A. You got to go all the way to RE1 to, quote, have a subdivision.
Yeah.
So the hard part for us is what really ought to be a subdivision. And what I've heard proposed is what would end up being is, in essence, 5 20-plus acre tracts. That may or may not be a subdivision.
Right. Right.
Depends on who's defining that.
Well,
and that's where we've got to do some work, guys. We've got to figure out how can we classify this activity of dividing property.
And if
so
that
as-
property buyer knows this is ag zone, my neighbors, if they buy 20 acre, 40 acre 20
Yes.
acres, they know my neighbor probably will be doing, even though I don't want any, maybe they may say, I don't want anything to do with any chicken litter. Well, right across the fence, it'd be okay.
Correct.
And
So we've got a lot of work to do in
I
order
see
to get
where
on top of this
the
issue.
size of a farm, if we're talking acreage, probably will be reduced over the next 50 years, and just like it has been over the last 50 and the 50 before that. But we don't want to get it down to where an acre and a half is considered a farm.
Right.
But our sub-regs or regs or zoning or whatever, I guess, needs
We've got
to
work to
reflect.
do. We've got work to do to try to fit those two ordinances together to make them work together and make it make sense. And we can talk about that at some point, but I think we've got some work to do to address this.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Slade.
Yes, sir.
To wrap this up, do you need action from us?
No, sir. There's no action taken. What we are doing is closing that hearing, and the record will reflect that the petition for rezoning has not been acted upon.
Okay. All right, so item F, Mr. Slade.
Item F.
If you folks would like to go, y'all are free to go. Sorry, Mr. Slade.
Item F is a public hearing on the Smokin' Patty conditional use permit at 1451 Highway 469 South. This is District 1. Smokin' Patty is seeking a conditional use permit to operate a hamburger stand in a portable building at 1451 Highway 469 South. The portable building is located next to Bridges Quickie Convenience Store. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 4 to 8 p.m. And it's a 0.43 acre tract zoned A1. They have a food service permit from the State Department of Health. We'll open that public hearing. At this time, I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to the Smokin' Patty conditional use permit. Anyone to speak in opposition? Mr. President, I don't see anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter. We'll close the public hearing. At this time, it'd be appropriate to take action.
Okay, I believe Renee has some things.
Yeah, there's a couple of
Some
things.
pending.
They need to obtain a building permit, and we need to go out and inspect the building to make sure that it meets building code requirements. And also, on the sewer system, we're going to have that final approval from the health department. So,
So basically, you want we can approve it pending all these things that you've said.
yes, sir, if that's what you choose to do.
Why do they need a building permit?
Well, they're setting up a business operation there. There's electrical, grease trap, different things that we have to inspect, and they were already set up and operational. We got a report that they were operating, and so that's how all this started.
Those who don't have a building permit.
I thought we needed a building permit when we were building something. If it's already there, why do we?
Well, they moved that
It
building
just
there
moved
and
it
set
in.
it up.
Oh,
They tied
right.
into the electrical, and they still have to have a grease trap
I'm with you, okay.
and different things.
All
Yeah,
right.
okay.
A little slow
A
there.
little slow.
So we've got three conditions there in addition, by the way, to what was already stated here, which is that they have specific hours of operation that are in place as proposed. That's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Saturday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Obtain a building permit, obtain the required inspections that Renee addressed, and also a certification from the health department.
On the sewer.
Right, those would be the three conditions,
The
Jerry.
only other thing that I'm just concerned about, simply for safety, is it enough room between where it's sitting and the adjacent road that we come in and out, as far as people pulling in or pulling out? It's kind of a busy little spot there sometimes in the evenings, and that's the only thing. I don't know what we can do or what, but that's one thing that does concern me a little bit. Somebody backing out into that oncoming traffic.
Yes, sir.
Because it's basically at an intersection. But I'm not sure what we could be done, but that is a concern. Okay. But anyway, I make a motion to approve this contingent they get everything that Renee has listed out there.
All right, so a motion by Mr. Morrison,
Second.
second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign. So item F passes. Item G, Mr. Slay.
Item G is a public hearing on the Reginald Timms conditional use permit, 143 Timms Circle. That's District 1. Mr. Timms is seeking a conditional use permit to replace an existing manufactured home with a 2018 32 by 80 home at 143 Thames Circle. It's a 34-acre parcel zoned RE1A. The property is in an estate. There are 6 other dwellings on the property. This time we'll open that public hearing. I'll ask if there's anyone here to speak in opposition to the Reginald Timms conditional use permit. Want to speak in opposition on that matter? Mr. President, I don't see anyone here to speak in opposition. We'll close that public hearing. At this time, it would be appropriate to take action.
I make a motion to approve.
All right, so motion to approve by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Morrow. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with a like sign. So item G passes. So item H, Mr. Slay, under other.
Yes, item H is a request for authorization for the board attorney to seek a court order that voids the 05, 12, 13, and 14 taxes on the parcel F9F17. You see that there? This is required because we have an AG opinion that says that anything older than 3 years, this board cannot take any action to void that. It has to go through the court to get a court order. We did one of these previously. This is a second one in a series. I don't expect there to be more than just a few of these a year.
So moved.
All right, so motion by Mr. Morrow.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with like sign. So item H passes. Speak item I, Mr. Slay.
We've got our friends with us today from Rankin Law Firm. We'll ask Kyle to be prepared. I think they're gonna let me try to vote on this, but just be ready, just in case. Come to my rescue. Guys, this is a proposed ordinance, heavy haul permit ordinance that we have been talking about for weeks and weeks. I've given this to you for review. It's about a 5-page ordinance. I want to say thank you very much to Kyle, to Trey, for their help on pulling together, cobbling together from several different county ordinances from around the state to help us get on top of this issue of how our county roads are protected in the event of what I will call significant use by heavy traffic. Dump trucks, logging activity primarily are the 2 areas where we see the most strain on our public roads. And so I wanted to walk you through how this ordinance is addressed. The first section is our authority section. It helps us to maintain the viability, the legality of the ordinance, explains by what authority we seek to address these issues by way of ordinance. The second provision there says it's for the purpose of protecting all of the roads, all of the public roads in unincorporated Rankin County. Right now, we have an ordinance in place, but it is only applicable to the Reservoir Community District. So this ordinance is proposed to be applicable county-wide. And that gets us away from an argument that we were being selective in our enforcement or attempting to run afoul of what I'll call equal protection arguments. That's terms that only lawyers can love. Then you'll see a section on definitions, which is pretty extensive and goes through. I want to call your attention to item J, heavy motor vehicle. That's the definition that really is operative here. We are defining a heavy motor vehicle, one which would be regulated under the ordinance as having a gross vehicle weight in excess of 30,000 pounds. My understanding, and I'm going to defer to my road manager here to help me with this, but I believe an unloaded tandem dump truck is about 26,000. All right. So more than likely, if the dump truck's empty, go wherever. Have at it. But if it's a loaded dump truck, it's going to need to be subject. It's going to have a permit, and it's going to have to stay on a defined haul route. The rest of this ordinance is logistics and mechanisms, okay, and some level of enforcement. Mike is going to provide notice. If this board chooses to move forward with this method of regulation, Mike will move forward to provide signage on public county roads to indicate that these are no truck roads or no heavy truck roads with the weight restriction to identify if you're on this road and you're hauling, come get a permit, okay? So here's the idea. It's permit-based and it is countywide. Those are the 2 biggies. It applies to any truck over 30. These are regulations, by the way, which are consistent with a number of counties around the state. Copiah comes to mind, DeSoto comes to mind. What are others, Kyle?
Madison.
And Adams. And Lauderdale is moving in this direction. We have it on good authority that they are probably going to adopt something similar to this. They haven't done so yet. There are exceptions to this, and so I want to call your attention to that. You will see county vehicles are accepted. Solid waste vehicles are accepted. And by the way, I believe that that number one exception is going to also help us with school buses, right? That we would consider or classify those as county vehicles. So solid waste is going to get a pass on that. What are some others, Kyle?
Utility trucks.
Utility, that's correct. Utility trucks get a pass.
School bus would get the pass.
School buses get a pass under county. But those are introduced. Yeah.
Under item B, agricultural and dairy products going to and from the field.
Yeah, there's actually a state statute that controls that. We can't regulate where the state has already stepped in to regulate, and so ag-based uses are going to have.
What about MDOT projects where they subcontract out to private dirt
As they
companies?
do, as they are, as we speak.
If they're on county roads, they are subject to the regulation.
MDOT's not going to put heavy hand, come in here and say they're
No.
part of our project.
I
They don't have
fully-
to play that game.
I fully expect that there will be maximum pressure applied through the general, through DOT, back to us, if it's a state. Nobody should labor under the misimpression that we won't be hearing about it. I guarantee you we'll be hearing about it.
All right, Mr. Slade, do you mind just kind of walking me through, let's just say a builder comes in to build a home. Walk me through the steps of the process, or maybe
Right.
Kyle, either one of y'all, just walk me through the process he would go through in order to build a home,
Yep.
whatever,
That's
development.
an excellent first question, because it gives me an opportunity to point something out that's a distinction that you need to be aware of. That builder is not regulated by that ordinance.
Okay.
That builder's dirt hauler
Okay.
is regulated by that ordinance right there. And so the hauler, the guy in the vehicle, is the one who needs to get a permit. Now, the builder may eventually be involved in that once enough of his truck drivers aren't showing up because they aren't going to get a permit, and so they're getting caught on the carpet. The builder's going to learn very quickly to make sure that the folks that are doing the hauling for them are aware that there's a permit process. And there will be signage. There will be notice provided.
So this falls directly on the dump truck driver itself.
This falls on the haulers themselves, the ones operating the vehicle. That's where the enforcement will be. That's where that's where the regulation will be. It does not apply. It is not set up or designed to apply, nor are other counties doing it, to apply to subdivision developers or to builders themselves,
Okay, so
unless they're hauling.
All right, so this is the concrete truck driver, this is the dump truck
Yes, sir.
driver, anything
Anything over
excessive to
30,000 pounds.
Concrete truck?
Yes, sir.
You gotta get the concrete in there.
Oh, he's just got to get, the permit
Permit.
process, right?
What about?
Well, this is our first time to
The-
look
the-
at
the-
this. I don't
Yeah,
know.
this is all.
The other thing I want to mention to you also, we do have, and I was thinking about the weight issue, non-county owned fire trucks.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if we need some wording, does that matter?
Yeah, I'm sure that our exceptions list will grow as we go. It may already be in there, Daniel. I don't remember seeing that specifically.
Because I believe, don't we have some county fire departments that have non-county purchased owned vehicles that are going to be outside that number easily?
I don't know, see.
So we'll want to include a little section in there.
Well, easily, but I mean, most of them we don't own.
So we'll solve that riddle by
Okay.
saying, in addition to
Emergency
county,
response.
emergency response vehicles.
Yep.
Craig, we said agriculture was taken care of from a state statute or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Log trucks?
No, sir.
That's the number one biggest agricultural product in Mississippi.
Yes, sir. You're right.
How do how would they not? And I'm not insisting that we do that, but I'm just thinking if I'm them, I got ag product.
So what the state has chosen to do is to deal primarily with row crop and farm to table operations, and timber does not have the same, I'm not aware of any specific state statute that exempts the timber operations in the way that the row crop and the farm to table operations are protected. I'm not aware of it.
I have a question for the sheriff. I know he's got more important things to do than pull over dump trucks, but how do you see this in y'all's enforcement game as far as what your deputies do out there already, you know, and the time they've got to help enforce this too?
Well, first thing I like to do with Paul Holly and Craig, like on our animal control ordinance, it's an ordinance, not a state law, so like on the specific ticket with the copies and all that stuff. When he has a complaint about one, he calls out, we're specifically trained, like 4 deputies, either get 4 deputies or 1 day shift, because that's what we're gonna get at them. They'll be trained up on orders, know what the law is, and one of them will respond and write the citation.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about our road manager giving citations.
Again,
No, we'll write citations, all you gotta do is cross that, hey, they're
Yeah.
without a permit.
Well, I mean, this doesn't say that.
well, as a draft, again, what's before you guys
Yeah.
is so that you can see how other counties are choosing to regulate, okay? That's what you're looking at.
Flagship.
Now we need to decide what or how we're gonna do it in relation to how they're doing it. I wanted you to have the full picture. This is what DeSoto and Madison are doing. Okay, so take a look at it. If you don't like that language, good. We'll get it revised before you guys decide to adopt something.
Sure.
And I'm fine with the sheriff. Actually, I'm fine with the sheriff being in control of issuing the citation. I think that's a twin win for us. Keeps Mike out of getting into the middle of tough situations, right? He's not a lawman. But it keeps him out of the middle of that. And it puts it in the hands of folks that deal with that constantly.
So are you saying though that the timber folks are going to be exempt from this?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, I think Steve's question was, is there a state law that would preempt this like there is for row crop and farm to table? The thing that comes to mind with me, Steve, is that in row crop, they have very traceable time frames that they work from. We know when cotton's coming out, we know when beans are coming out, we know when wheat's coming out. And so there's a very heavy, intense traffic, but it's short term. They're getting their commodities to the bin, to the gin, to the grain elevator, whatever. So we know the route, we know where they're headed, and it's a limited short-term focus. Timber, it's whenever it's dry enough for them to get in.
Yeah, but look, if you're dealing at Puckett or anybody delivering a skidder or bulldozer or just driving the low boy, it's gonna be heavier than that.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's I think we may have a little issue with, how we gonna know it weighs 30,000 pounds, you know?
Right, so.
Well, as I'm saying, a truck with a low boy is gonna weigh more than that.
If it's full, it's way more than 30.
That's if it's a Bob tandem axle dump truck.
So we've asked that question, and I'm going to let my guys jump in here and correct it. But we've asked that question, and the response that we've gotten is we use common sense.
Okay.
If it's empty, we let it go. If it's hauling, we have the ability to stop it and ask, where's the permit?
Okay.
You have a list of all the operating dirt pits in the county. Legal.
Well, some that have not been. I mean, back in the day, some of them weren't permitted.
Well, I'm not saying going back to how we notify these folks.
Yeah,
the process here? We've got to put them on notice, you know, to give them opportunity. Thank you.
There's a process, and if you'll look, the process starts at Section 5, which is on page 3. It says the road manager shall ensure that a notice of weight limit and travel restrictions is posted in conspicuous places on county roadways, erected at intervals of not less than 2 miles. And you see your little bracketed language there, don't you? That seems onerous, but it's required by statute.
The process, though, of knowing
you gotta put up
when
1,000 signs
to get,
if you got them on.
when to get the route established that for these dump truck drivers or the construction people.
That's at the time of the permitting. At the time of the permitting, Mike will take, or what is your activity? Road department. What is your activity? How consistent, how long-term will this be? He'll evaluate all of that, and then he'll assign a route as part of the permit process. He's also authorized on a case-by-case basis to establish a collateral requirement or a security requirement. If the use is going to be so significant and the impact on the road because of the route, maybe a road that's just not very stable, not going to hold up well, he can require as part of the permit that they actually post collateral to protect the damage on that particular road. Assign it. So it's a similar process to what we're using now in the RCD ordinance, but it is applicable to the driver, and it is subject to more thorough thought process and regulation actually in language now, as opposed to just leaving it totally to the discretion of the road manager.
All right, but back again, what if Lyle Machinery one that wants to deliver some equipment? They're gonna have to call us and get a permit to carry that ain't
Well,
gonna
there's gonna be established roads that are approved.
It don't matter, if they're gonna bring one down to my house and deliver it at my house, they're not gonna go through all that.
So what I could see for a Lyle Machinery would be, and again, there's so much discretion here.
Yeah.
What can happen is Lyle Machinery will get a permit for 2018 or 2019 that says if they're hauling equipment on a lowboy, they will go this particular route, and they'll have a permit that allows that to happen.
Yeah, but Craig, this particular route, they're not gonna haul the same place every time. They might be delivering to Steve's, to mine, to Daniel's, so they don't have a particular route.
They probably won't be delivered to me.
Well, I think
I just think about it. I want you to be
didn't
included.
Regions have an exemption for deliveries?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we could
Yeah.
just do an exemption for deliveries, couldn't we?
Yeah, unfortunately, Jay, once we start down that road, that
delivering
logger's
dirt.
going to say, I'm just
Delivering-
delivering.
I'm delivering dirt.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
delivering.
do, I mean,
That's
you,
true.
all
That's
you.
true. I'm just delivering this
I
concrete.
don't see how you
Yeah.
can.
Delivering it.
Well, I'm certainly not gonna wanna write them a
I think you're
citation.
gonna get caught in the quandary is, and I get the common sense aspect.
Yeah.
They're saying, you gave me a ticket, but I saw Sport going down the hill. I know he had over 30,000. Y'all didn't
But
stop
I mean,
him.
but that's the same argument you make on you gave me a speeding ticket and 3 guys blew past me. You know,
I know.
the same argument either way. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just.
And once again, we find that in the process of trying to make this sausage,
Right.
we end up with a one-size-fits-all kind of approach, unfortunately, that is going to have some difficulties in application.
All right, so
We're
at
just
this
gonna
point,
have some-
right at
some
this point
issues.
right now, Mr. Slay, this is just for review discussion.
correct.
We'll bring it back at another
yeah.
point to talk about. Okay.
And we told you guys that we were coming with something for you to start talking
Thank you.
about at this meeting, and
Perfect.
we have
Hit it.
mission accomplished that part.
You came,
So-
and you
Going
went.
forward, ideally, if we, building, someone, developer, a home builder comes in, the permit process now would be call road department and get your route, right?
Yeah,
Today. You
Jay,
today?
w-
Going
we're,
forward,
Oh, okay.
going forward.
the builder is not going to request the permit, okay?
Right.
The driver, the truck, the hauling operation, that dirt contractor is the one who's going to request the permit.
That's
okay?
under this
There's no
regulation.
issue with us going
No,
ahead and
I'm saying,
advising.
though, whenever the home builder comes to get the building permit, at that point will be when the route's established. Is that not correct?
No, sir. It's when that dirt contractor is seeking the permit to haul.
This deal here takes the home builder out of it totally.
He's the one that created it.
Unless
But
he,
it's all keyed off that building permit. though.
Yes, sir. Well, obviously, the dirt contractor is the one who needs to know
Right,
he's got to have a
and
permit if
everybody
he's going to do
else-
that.
I was simply saying that by the permit being pulled, we need to establish a route for not, for everybody, you know, the concrete, the lumber, you know, the whole 9 yards. And also, what about whenever they come to get a permit for their dirt mine, that's when we'll establish a route?
Yes, sir. So now that's a
Well,
totally
that's,
different deal there. That's
totally
obviously,
different.
there's going to be some interplay, but the process of determining an exempt mining operation, Jay, that falls under our zoning regulations. And so we have chosen in the past to adapt a haul route requirement as a part of our zoning consideration, whether or not we're going to give a conditional use for that. Okay, we've introduced that as a condition. That there has to be a haul route. They can only haul on certain times. Can't haul on Sunday. That type of thing that we've done in the past. We've always done that within the context of our zoning authority.
Okay.
You don't have to rezone something to haul dirt from Simpson County to a subdivision development in Florence.
All right.
There's no zoning in there. So this addresses the issue of how we regulate just generalized hauling activity that's unrelated necessarily to zoning.
Okay, what's the deal with the dude that's loading the trucks in the pit, and he's got 5 different guys on 5 different trucks hauling?
Yep. So
who's gonna, the guy that owns the pit? Every driver's gonna have
the driver is the one who is subject to the regulation. That if they're the best way I know to say this, Jared, is if a guy for whatever reason leaves a pit empty, we don't care what route he chooses. He's empty. So I don't know what we can do with the pit operator in that situation. He's not really controlling where those guys are going.
Yeah, if the guy has a pit, he's loading dirt, he owns 2 trucks, but he needs 5 more.
Yes, sir.
So, and each one of them different people.
Yes, sir.
Just trying to make a living.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna go get all of them, we're gonna have to have that.
Any of them that don't have a permit would be subject to the regulation, yes, sir. So where we find ourselves is right now, we got no regulation of any kind, and we know what the outcome of that is.
Yeah.
And we're trying our best to figure out what's a workable solution in terms of regulation that can be enforced and that we can do as much fairly as we can. I think, guys, that when the word gets around, if you got anything in it, you need a permit. Once that word starts getting filtering around through the driver community, we will see compliance.
We will hear.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I mean,
my hope is we'd see compliance.
Yeah.
By the way, y'all need to look at that.
We've seen, you can go.
Look at the violation section, which is number 8. Look at that. As proposed, and this is a draft now, but as proposed, there's only fines that are in this particular enforcement mechanisms. Only fining. Nobody's going to jail. So if we need to have that conversation, you understand that we can't threaten with jail time. Okay, and we're going to have some actors who may do some calculations, say, you know what, third offense, $1,000. I'm going to roll the dice.
Sure.
Okay, so we need to think that through.
We just got that $1,000.
Where's Superior and Ad Camp gonna fall in this?
They will need a permit.
This is a draft, so,
Yeah, it's a draft.
Y'all may want to think about exceptions and exemptions. You may want to really spend some time thinking about that.
Yeah.
I would encourage you
We'll
not
get back
to.
with you back in 2020 on this project.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna get right on it.
January
Well, the
4th.
problem though, y'all, is we have an ordinance out there now that we're requiring builders to do this. That's kind of the driving force here is we need to address it or either do away with the one we have.
Let's go ahead and do away with what we have and get that behind us. We can focus on the one going forward.
Well, I feel like we do that and we're just gonna drop it and not do it at all.
Well, no, I mean, Mr. Slade's been pretty persistent here at nobody's beck and call to keep this in front of us. So I've got us going all the way.
We're putting in front of it, along with
I
me.
don't know where that
Along
making
with me.
call's coming, but I'm good till January 15th. Man.
All right. Anything else? Any else discussion on this?
let's move on.
All right. So item
Just a discussion item.
Item J, Mr. Slay.
If I may get a little direction, when do y'all, at the risk of drawing Mr. Morrow's ire even further, when do y'all want to see this revisited?
Let us talk it over.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll get a date.
Yeah.
You'll get back to me.
Lose my email.
Okay.
I'm not gonna drop it. Daniel and I can work on it some more.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drop it either. I mean, it's important on our side.
Okay.
So.
As long as the two of y'all keep working on it, we're in good shape.
Well,
Y'all lost last time, didn't you?
At some point, we gotta do something. We can't leave it.
Look, I looked up the other day. I was driving through Florence, and there's no truck signs down there.
Oh, yeah, all over the place.
I know it.
Doesn't stop.
They
it,
are
does it?
down there.
I know.
No, but that's in Florence. If Florence wants to do it, that's fine.
You don't have any in the county down
We in the
there? No
county-
trucks on?
No.
But
We're
we're not dropping
I don't know.
Craig.
I thought I saw
Well,
some.
well,
Maybe I was in the
it'll
city.
be,
in town.
In the city.
It'll come up for a vote soon.
Okay.
All right, so item J, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Slay.
This is consideration of and potential action to adopt a resolution that authorizes the funding of 2 public defenders to serve the Rankin County Justice Court. This is cleanup. You guys have already provided this, your expression of intent. You've already approved a motion to retain 2 attorneys, but they have to be appointed by the senior circuit judge. And so this is we're moving the ball down the field. This is simply a resolution that authorizes 2 additional part-time justice court public defenders assigned only when it is determined that there is an indigent defendant in need of legal representation, and the 2 will be assigned to the public defender's office by way of an order entered by the senior circuit judge. They will work the justice court, max of 20 hours per week. They will be 1099. So we've got a resolution that's prepared for you to do that, so that the next step will be the senior circuit judge appointing 2.
So moved.
No, so we don't get to select who these public defenders are going to be?
The senior circuit, the senior circuit judge will choose from 3 justice court judges and the county attorney, not me, Richard Wilson, giving them 2 names, and the senior circuit judge will then enter an appointing order to that effect. Okay, so the 2 appointees will come from a recommendation of 3 justice court judges out of 4 and Richard Wilson. They will be assigned to justice.
Wow.
So it'll be
Why does
them.
the 4th one not get a vote?
We're just saying any 3 of the 4. Any 3 of the 4. A majority of the justice court judges.
I don't know if this is something we want to table to discuss or talk about.
I just.
So moved, Mr. President.
All right, so we got a motion by, hang on a second. We got a motion by Mr. Morrow. Second for discussion? Yeah, I'll second it for discussion. All right, so into the discussion side of it.
All right. Well, I know that there was concerns, about who those representatives are going to be. I hate us just not having any say in it, but I guess we don't have say in the others.
The resolution as proposed, I should have mentioned this, requires that it be 2 licensed practicing attorneys who actually have offices in Rankin County.
I really don't think we know too much to say. They pick their own.
So really the only parameter is that they have to be licensed attorneys practicing in Rankin County.
Okay. All right. Well,
all right.
Do we need to act on this today?
Got a motion and a second?
I think that our county court judge and our circuit judge was really thinking that it was going to happen today.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be the
I don't want to get
ones.
involved in that process.
No, that's their deal.
All right.
They pick who they want. They handle that.
All right.
All right,
I
so
don't know what else to do then. We'll move forward.
Well, what else could we do? Whatever.
Right.
I mean, how else could you handle it? We don't know who to pick.
we're not talking about picking.
That's what he said. We're gonna have some say in who was picked.
I'll be glad to rescind the motion if you got a better solution to the problem.
No, I just know that there was concern from one of the judges about some of the candidates, so,
They don't think the pool is deep enough, the candidate pool is deep enough, or what? They don't think-
Possibly.
Possibly?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
But I think that does fall back on the judges itself.
Yes.
Then, at that same point, if the judges
3
still
of
have
the
a say
4
in it,
justice court judges and Richard Wilson make a recommendation to the senior circuit judge of 2 licensed practicing attorneys who are practicing law in Rankin County.
Okay.
If they come up with those 2 and present them to the senior circuit judge, and the senior circuit judge does not have some reason not to appoint, they will be appointed.
all right. I'm good. Let's move
all right,
on.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign. Item J passes. Mr. Slay, it's been a full day for you.
It has.
Thank you very much. We're at item number 11, Ms. Oster. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. The first thing I have this morning is on our new misdemeanor facility, and it's approval of pay application number 3 to Flagstar Construction in the amount of $89,279.10 and authority to issue that check.
So move.
All right, so a motion by Mr. Morrow to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with like signs? Item A passes. Item B.
Authority to pay the county's portion of PERS on the net income for the Chancery Clerk in the amount of $8,528 for the calendar year of 2017.
So move.
All right, so a motion by Mr. Morrow. Second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with like signs? Item B passes. Item C.
Laura
This
going
is-
to drug court? What happened?
I'm sorry. This is authority for me to attend the AOC Drug Court budget requirements meeting on May the 9th at the Supreme Court building and to pay mileage reimbursement.
Misreading that.
All right.
So move.
Motion to approve. Bishop, Mr. Morrow. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign? So item D.
This is to accept Trustmark Bank as the lease purchase for 2 Caterpillar 930M wheel loaders at an interest rate of 2.84, and that is for a 4.5-year lease.
So move.
Second.
All right, so motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Mr. Morrison. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign? Item 12. Ms. Oster.
We have an emergency declaration for the repairs of the Leesburg Tower struck by lightning in March, and Mike is here if y'all have any questions about that. We will also turn this into our insurance company.
Okay.
So move.
All right, so motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Mr. Morrison. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with the like sign? Anything else additional business, Ms. Oster?
I have a quick question for Mike since he's here. Somebody asked me this past weekend. Do we have a building down there amongst the road department buildings that the firefighters use for training that we're no longer letting them use because of what we're trying to accomplish down there? Is that correct?
Yes, at this point, yes, sir.
And we're looking at, I mean, I know it's going to take some time to duplicate some of our assets. Are we trying to do anything? Do we have anything that kind of help keep that moving in the right direction? Or?
Mr. Morrow, I know this is a very, very unpopular subject with our firefighters in Rankin County. Being in fire service training for the last 20 years, I think it's a blessing in disguise at this point. I know that's a bad thing to say.
As long as you're on video seeing it, I don't have a
And I am. And I can back it up and I can defend it. All your fire service training should adhere to NFPA 1403. I almost said 1003. That's airport.
Our supervisor correct you over here.
That's right.
He gave me a layup right there. He knew I knew that one.
Trying to give him one there. 1403, and it tells you exactly how you've got to have everything laid out, this, that, and the other. Burns the whole deal. I'm not satisfied that that's compliant. I'm really not. Unbelievable potential for liability. You can read them on firehouse.com every week where something is happening in the training world where things go bad that they did not have the correct controls in. At any rate, at this point, it's got to be moved, reconfigured, at which point then we can go back in and address it and look at some of the ways that things were being done in the past and parameters that they set and things of that nature. There is absolutely nothing but go in and actually set a fuel load that they determine themselves of how many pieces of pallet, how much straw they're going to stick in there. There's no measurement devices. There's nothing at all. So
you got water source issues. You got a pile of, you don't want to be burning down there.
So is this something you are working towards addressing and trying
at this point, until such time as we get a place to reconfigure something. Now, as far as using it for smoke training, not a problem. You can do that all day long. All day long. It's the actual live fire training inside of that structure is where your issue is coming in at.
So are you utilizing someone else's facility until?
No, at this point we do not.
No.
Do not.
You can simulate a live fire by just doing the smoke training. The only difference is you're just not spraying water actually on a fire. You can still maneuver the hose through the building. You can still black it out with zero visibility. You can still work all of the components of interior fire attack without having the live fire. And there's no standard